Hey guys, it's Cece, and today I'm going to be talking about all the series that I'm planning on finishing at some point. Definitely. Maybe. So this video comes as a third part to two other videos that I did. My series I'm not gonna finish, and all the series that I have finished. You can go check those out if you're curious. But today's video is all about series that I've started reading and I would like to finish at some point in the future. Distantly. Overall, this list managed to be shorter than both of my other two lists. There are 28 series that I would like to continue forward with or to wrap up if all of the books are already out. So let's just go through those now. First up is the Ashes series by Ilsa J. Bick. I read this first book when I was in high school. It's a really interesting beginning of an apocalypse type novel, and it definitely intrigued me. It was the right level of creepy and intense, and so at some point I'd really like to finish these books. Another series that I would definitely like to finish is the Mortal Instruments series. I have read books 1 through 5 of this series, which just leaves one that I haven't gotten to yet. I know. These books are sort of fun, and they have some interesting characters, and I just really enjoyed them when I was in high school, and so I would like to at some point get the 6th book and read it. But I would also really like to finish the Infernal Devices, which I know I need to do if I'm going to finish the Mortal Instruments. I've only read the first book of the Infernal Devices, but I've heard that it's a better series overall, which makes me curious, so at some point I would like to wrap up both of these series kind of together. They go together, so you kind of have to finish both of them. At some point I am going to finish The 13th Reality by James Dashner. This is the 4th and final book, and the only book I have not read yet. I own it. It's in my possession. The only thing stopping me is the fact that I remember almost nothing of this series, so either I'm going to have to reread them all, or I'm going to have to look up some summaries, because I've already reread this series to read the 3rd book. I love this series, so at some point, I'm gonna finish it. I would also like to continue forward with the Mateo Alacron series. This is the House of the Scorpion series by Nancy Farmer. This was one of my favorite sci-fi books of all time. Nancy Farmer is one of my favorite writers. She writes excellent fantasy, really, really good sci-fi, and for a while I didn't know that the House of the Scorpion had a sequel. But it does. And now I really, really want to read it because I absolutely adored this book. It had some really interesting things to say about clones, and it took place in a very interesting world. Look at all these awards that it's won. Definitely want to continue forward. I definitely want to continue forward with the Mirror World series by Cornelia Funk. This is only the first book, Reckless, but there is one more currently, and I think there's going to be another one after that. I don't know, I probably didn't do enough research on the topic of this series, but it's Cornelia Funk. I love Cornelia Funk, and this first book was really, really strong. It is a dark fairy tale world, which is very interesting. Cornelia Funk writes excellent fantasy. I talked about this book in my favorite fairy tale retellings video, so definitely going to happen. I would like to finish reading the Palace Chronicles by Margaret Peterson Haddix. This is another series that I mentioned in my favorite fairy tale retellings video, and the books aren't necessarily connected except for the fact that they all take place within the same world, so I think you get mentions of some of the characters in other books, but it's not necessarily a full connecting storyline. But I just found out that there's a 3rd one that came out this year or maybe last year, and I love Margaret Peterson Haddix, and I really loved reading these books. So now that I know that, gonna have to track down the 3rd book. The next series that I am absolutely going to finish is the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. I am completely caught up on this series now because I just finished reading Assassin's Blade like a week ago, I think. Really, really good. So I love this series. I love Selena. Heir of Fire was an absolutely incredible 3rd book. And Queen of Shadows comes out in like a couple weeks, like a week and a half. I'm not going to be able to get my hands on it for a while, but as soon as I do, this series. This one might come as kind of a surprise to some people, the list that it's on. I would like to at some point finish the Twilight Saga by Stephenie Meyer. Okay, so here's what happened with Twilight. I went through my really intense Twilight phase, and then I went through a phase where I hated Twilight because everyone else loved it, and so I refused to ever read Breaking Dawn. I read like a third of it, I think, and then I just never finished. I saw the movies, but now I am to a happy medium kind of place where I'm grown up and I don't just adamantly hate books due to their popularity. And so at some point in my life, I need to, for just a sense of completion overall, I need to finish the Twilight Saga. I kind of want to reread all of the books just because it was an important part of my life. I loved Twilight and I'd like to finish the series, so we'll see when that happens, maybe. I don't own the books anymore, but it's okay. Lots of people still own their Twilight books. I want to continue on reading The Candy Shop War by Brandon Mull. This is a middle grade fantasy book. I've just read the first one, but my sister has the second one directly downstairs, and I really liked the first one, so I don't know what's stopping me from going and getting the second one and reading it. I mean, clearly I like this book. This is a signed copy of The Candy Shop War. It's a great book. Second book coming soon. Well, not soon. In the future. I want to finish the Chicay Files by Daniel O'Malley. The first book is The Rook. This is an adult urban fantasy series that I read last summer. I read the first book, The Rook, and I didn't know there was going to be a second one, but there is going to be a second one called Stiletto coming out in January, and I cannot wait. I loved this book. I loved the very odd world that it created, and I really liked the main character, so I'm very excited that I get to continue on reading this series. I'd like to pick up more of the Jenna Fox Chronicles by Mary E. Pearson. I don't know if I would necessarily want to finish this series. I just remember really liking the first book, and it makes me curious to read what the other books would be like. So not necessarily a series that I want to complete, but a series that I want to revisit so I can see what originally made me love it so much. I want to continue reading the Across the Universe books by Beth Revis. This was a very, very good first book. Very interesting, very different. It's sci-fi, it takes place in space. I just remember really loving this book, and the other books intrigued me because of it. This was a really well-written book, so we'll see. I definitely want to finish reading The Unwind Dystology by Neal Shusterman. I have read the first two books, Unwind and Unholy. They are absolutely amazing dystopian books. I completely adore these. I got to meet Neal Shusterman, and him talking about the books got me even more excited about them. I just haven't picked up the last two books for some reason. These are really good. I don't know why. I really want to finish the series. After Unholy, there was so much going on in that book, and Neal Shusterman is just one of my favorite authors. I love him. I definitely want to continue reading The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. I read The Raven Boys this month, and it was really interesting. I liked it. I don't think I loved it quite as much as a lot of other people on BookTube, but I definitely really enjoyed it, and I really loved all of the characters, and with an ending like The Raven Boys had, I know that I need to go get The Dream Thieves, and Blue Lily Lily Blue, I believe, is the third one that's out, and I know the fourth one is coming out next year, so I have to catch up on the series because it was really interesting. I want to continue reading The Wolves of Mercy Falls by Maggie Stiefvater. I know this is sort of one that is not particularly loved here on BookTube. If you're gonna talk Maggie Stiefvater, you gotta talk like Scorpio Races or The Raven Cycle, but this was a guilty pleasure series for me, and I really, really liked the first three books, and now I know that there is Sinner. I don't really know what it's about necessarily, what it has to do with these. I know that the cover doesn't match the rest of the books, which is going to annoy me, but I'll just get over it because there's no way I'm replacing these absolutely gorgeous covers. I mean, it's a guilty pleasure series, but I definitely want to read Sinner. I want to continue reading The Partials Sequence by Dan Wells. This was an interesting dystopian, not my favorite, but something that was well written enough that I would like to continue. It had an interesting enough, original enough storyline for me to continue reading. When it comes out, far in the distant future, I would like to read more of the Zero series by Scott Westerfeld, Margot Lanigan, and Deborah Biancotti, because I really liked this first book, and it's supposed to be a series. I hope it does well enough that it becomes a series, because I would definitely read more of these. In fact, I need to read more of these. The way it ended, I definitely just want to continue forward on with them. I absolutely want to continue reading The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey. I believe this is a trilogy. I'm not sure. I've seen the second book. I don't know what the deal is with the third book yet. I haven't really kept up to date on it. But this was a really interesting book. It was a cool end-of-the-world novel. It was a cool alien novel. And Rick Yancey's just a really interesting writer. So I definitely want to pick up more of these. I've heard that the second one isn't as good as the first, but I'm still curious, so it's gonna happen. I would like to read the third Princess Academy book by Shannon Hale. I read these first two, and I really liked them. They're just sweet, nice books. They're really lovely books. This first one is a Newbery Honor book, and I just barely found out a couple of months ago that the third book came out this year. So I definitely want to pick up that. I would love to finish Dustlands by Moira Young. I don't really know why I abandoned this series in the first place. It wasn't intentional, like I'm never going to come back to this series. I just kind of let it drift. It kind of reminds me of the Chaos Walking trilogy written from Todd's point of view, but it's a little bit more difficult to decipher. But Dustlands just was a really interesting series. I read the first two, and I don't know why I never finished. At some point, and this one is probably one of the longest ways off, I would love to finish the Sea of Trolls series, also by Nancy Farmer. That's right, bringing her back. This is an excellent fantasy book. One of my favorites. This one is sort of centered on Vikings, but it's very interesting, very, very cool characters, and there are two more that I just never read for some reason, but this book has stayed with me for so many years that I've never let that dream of reading the final two books go, because I just really would like to. Now on to the last couple of series. These are all graphic novels or comic series that I am very dedicated to and would like to continue reading. The first of those is Lumberjanes. This is a series written by Noelle Stevenson, Grace Ellis, and Brooke A. Allen. I have read the first 13 single-issue comics and absolutely adore them. I think it's one of my favorite things that I've ever read. It's so positive and happy. Apparently some people have a problem with the art style, and I just do not understand because I think it's adorable, and I absolutely adore these comics, and I will at some point get back up to date again, and then I will be following them for as long as they are published. I am 100% going to continue on reading Saga by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. So far, I've just read this first volume. It is one of the most I've ever enjoyed any kind of visual storytelling, and it is exactly in my wheelhouse, so I will definitely be picking up the rest of the volumes that are currently out, and I will be following the series beyond that. In a few months, when the final book comes out, I would love to finish reading the City in the Desert series by Mauro Rogers. These are graphic novels that I read at the end of last month, and I absolutely adored, but it's taking the artist and writer a little while to get out the third volume. So I absolutely love this book, and I'm very excited to read it. And finally, I am definitely going to finish the Scott Pilgrim series by Brian Lee O'Malley. This is the third volume, because this was the easiest to get to. The other books are in my sister's room, and this one was already out because I just read it. So there are 6 books in this series total. I have read 3 of them. I just kind of read them when I want a graphic novel I know is going to be a lot of fun. So I love Scott Pilgrim the movie, and I'm really enjoying the books. They won't take me that much longer to get through, so definitely gonna finish Scott Pilgrim. There you go, guys. Those are the series that at some point in my life I would like to finish. There are a lot of books. There are a lot of books on this list, and some of them probably will not happen, but these are the ones at present that I really do just want to get to. So if you have read any of these series, let me know what you thought of them below. Should I continue? Should I not continue? Thank you for watching, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!